Thank you. All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Bonjour. On behalf of all of us behind the scenes here today, welcome to this event whereby the first official Innovation Lab student cohort will present their prototypes and the results of their work on the winter 2021 challenges. Very exciting. A warm welcome to all of the participating students joining us in the space today, the special invited guests who have come, and the audience members. Good morning. Nous aimerions commencer par reconnaître que l'Université Concordia est située en territoire autochtone, lequel n'a jamais été cédé. Nous reconnaissons la nation Kanien'kehá:ka comme gardienne des terres et des eaux sur lesquelles nous nous réunissons aujourd'hui. Tiohtià:ke, Montréal, est historiquement connu comme un lieu de rassemblement pour de nombreuses Premières Nations et aujourd'hui une population autochtone diversifiée ainsi que d'autres peuples y résident. C'est dans le respect des liens avec le passé, le présent et l'avenir que nous reconnaissons les relations continues entre les peuples autochtones et autres personnes de la communauté montréalaise. For those of you unfamiliar with Concordia's fourth space, welcome to our virtual channel. As a university-wide platform that activates research, teaching, and cross-disciplinary initiatives brewing at Concordia University, it is our great pleasure to collaborate with the Innovation Lab to bring you this event. We are recording and live streaming this event. We've activated all communication channels for you, the audience today. The chat's on, the Q&A is on, and audio if you'd like to raise your hand to speak during the question period. We'll go ahead and unmute you. I'll also say that we have live interpretation services activated here today. So if you want to turn that on for yourself, Ariel's on that channel speaking to us in English at the beginning and later on in French. If you want to listen in French live today, go ahead and get yourself set up in the webinar space here today by clicking on the interpretation box. All right, obviously I haven't woken up yet, so I'll pass it over to someone who has, because of the construction happening where she's at. So welcome to our interim provost and vice president academic, Anne Whitelaw. Over to you, Anne.
Thanks, Anna, and it's a real pleasure to be here with everyone to celebrate the launch of the Innovation Lab. This has been something that I have been hearing a tremendous amount about from Nadia Bouyen, and of course from There It Goes, and from Anne-Louise Davidson. So I am just really so happy to be here with you, and I wish I didn't have what sounded like really big growling behind me. So maybe just a few things to say to launch this. You know, one of the things about being a university during COVID times is that it really challenges us to think differently about the way that we work. And actually makes us be really innovative in how we create the kind of informal learning environments that can engage students online in relevant and authentic projects and activities. So this is something that has really been key to the development of the Innovation Lab, which I think would have happened whether we were in person or online, but the texture of it, the flavor of it, I think has been a little different because of our requirement to be primarily online. I think the important thing about what we need to do as an institution, as Concordia, that really sees itself as a next-gen university, is to reflect on the conditions that our students need to develop into fully fledged contributing citizens. And prepare you, not just to prepare you for the expectations of the workforce, but to also think about what kind of people our students want to be and need to be in an era that is really shaped by, on the one hand, an increased expectation of high-tech knowledge and ability and skills, but also an era that really is more attuned to, and I think importantly, very aware of social justice issues. So the Concordia University Innovation Lab is that space where students can do everything. They can learn to be creative, they can learn to think strategically and critically about crucial topics. They can develop their communication and collaboration skills, but they can also learn to be leaders and to develop their networks. More importantly, the Innovation Lab is a space where students can develop meaningful connections. And as we'll hear today, the first cohort has given us a fantastic sampler of what students can create when they work on various innovations. So I'm very pleased to be here. I'm amazed that the construction stopped during the time of my remarks, and I'm going to pass this back over to Nadia to talk a little bit about the Innovation Lab.
Thank you so much, Anne, and good morning, everybody. My name is Nadia Bouyan. I'm the Vice Provost of Partnerships and Experiential Learning, and welcome to our first student presentations of the Winter Innovation Lab Challenges. So the Innovation Lab was launched officially this winter, and it was conceived to give our students the opportunity to develop or to hone their innovation skills by working on challenges or on projects that are led by industry, by community organizations, by Concordia faculty and staff, or even by students themselves. We also offer workshops to our students to allow them to acquire innovation skills and then to put them to use in their challenges or their projects. They're guided by innovation mentors, and students in the lab are offered a space, right now a virtual space, to play, to experiment with bold ideas, to fail, to iterate, and to develop solutions to important contemporary problems alongside their peers. So the teams were deliberately and will continue to be deliberately designed to be multidisciplinary to make sure that we can have diverse perspectives that are brought to the table, and also to spark creative collisions. I'd like to thank Anne-Louise Davidson, who's the director of the Innovation Lab, and Ariel Harlap, who is the coordinator of the Innovation Lab, for their invaluable work in bringing this lab to life. This lab was a dream in the making for about 1.5 years now, and so I'm really excited to finally see the presentations of the very first challenges coming out of the lab. I'd also like to thank our Innovation Lab partners and the mentors that have offered guidance to all of the students that are going to present today. And thank you to all of the students for bringing your innovative minds to address the challenges that were put before you. I'm really looking forward to the presentations. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Ariel, the Innovation Lab coordinator.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. I'm in the English interpretation channel. Okay, great. So I just wanted to say thanks so much to all the mentors who've supported students through their learning journey. You play such an essential role at the Innovation Lab, and without you, it would not have a reason to exist, because not only do we focus on the students, but it is also about giving students that opportunity to reach outside the university and learn from your perspectives, your context, challenge their ways of thinking, and even connect them with other members of your community or your workplace. So thanks again, and I look forward, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate together and to nurture new connections. And I'll be switching over to the French interpretation for the rest of the presentations.
Thank you, Ariel. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Anne. Now I will let the first group present. So they worked on the face mask challenge. Alberto Hung, James Fay, Omar Nawaz, and Sarah Frilleringer. Over to you, team.
Thank you. I'll just share and kick it off with a video. Oh. And you can see okay?
Humidity, ear pain, fit issues, fogging. Long ago, we didn't have these issues. Then, everything changed when COVID-19 attacked. We're the face mask team, and we hope to fix some of these issues.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our presentation. My name is Sarah and I worked with Alberto, James, and Omar. So just to give a quick background, Alberto and Omar have backgrounds in engineering, and James has a background in communications as well as animation, and I'm an English Lit student with a background in sewing. So we're here today to present the face mask challenge, and I'm going to present to you the description in the next slide. So the main description of our challenge was to take the design of face masks and try to improve on them and create relevant prototypes towards this goal. Next slide, please. So we came up with a problem statement to help us guide our project, so I'll read it to you now. So we saw that the public's understanding of masks does not encourage proper use on a broad enough scale to curb the pandemic. And so our hope was to encourage proper use by improving aspects of face masks, including fit, design, marketing, and the prevention of COVID-19. Next slide, please.
So initially, to start the design process, we did some literature review based on our online research. We found out some materials that offered good efficiency in filtrating the aerosol particles. We understood the problems faced by the users who wear face masks every day, their misconceptions. We learned that face masks are mainly worn to protect others rather than ourselves. We looked on to some of the prototypes and designs available in the market. In the case of our design, we basically focused to improve the fit and leakage of a face mask. And also, finally, we learned about the mechanism played by the aerosol particles during the transmission of the COVID-19 virus. Next slide, please.
Hi. So to gather data and conduct interviews, we started first with seeing what the industry standards were for, what made a face mask worthwhile and effective, thanks to the ASTM. And then we conducted some formal interviews. We spoke with people who had studied at the PhD level, things like ventilation and filtration to the University of Montreal and the IRSST. We also conducted informal interviews just with people like around Sarah's workplace and people we know, in our lives, and kept the data in a Google Sheet for each other and saw what was kind of open source around the topic.
So using this information, we created a framework for our project. So we came up with a couple of common issues with face mask users. So as mentioned in the little video, you have the glasses fogging, the ear pain, and the lack of fit, and also maybe even the humidity factor. And as Omar mentioned, we wanted to focus mainly on the fit aspect of the issues. Next slide, please.
So there were some challenges that we faced in the prototyping phase of our design. As you can see on the leftmost picture, there's this large mold that took a really long time to print. So we didn't actually print that mold. We aborted the design. So we redesigned and 3D printed two other frame molds. As you can see in the middle picture, those frame molds didn't fit really well with each other. So we again had to redesign. And on the rightmost picture, we have the gasket mold strips that was supposed to be used in casting the silicone material, which would act as a sealing to the frame. So these strips were misaligned while 3D printing. And yeah, we faced that problems twice. So next slide, please. So we decided to design a face mask frame and a face mask head clip. So the frame is basically made up of a thermoplastic material called PCL. When heated to 60 degrees Celsius, it behaves as a Play-Doh, so it's easy to be manipulated. So this material was casted between the two frame molds, as you can see in the picture with the black background. And these frame molds were designed on a 3D model software called SolidWorks, and later they were 3D printed. Moving on to the face mask head clip. The head clip goes behind the head. Its purpose is to provide a good fit and grip to the face mask while attaching the ear loops to one of its holders, depending on an individual's head size. So next slide, please. Yeah.
Okay, so once we had the molds printed, we melted the PCL into hot water. We roll it up to form a film, and then cast it in between the two molds. When I removed the molds, I realized that I didn't achieve the extruded hole that you see on the screen. So I had to improvise a little bit by working with my hands. After that, I remolded it into the contours of my face, and finally, I let it just to cool it down. So now we had the frame ready to be assembled into the mask. Next slide.
So as Alberto will go into a little bit later, we tried different types of masks with the frame. And so I was in charge of making the fabric/homemade mask because it would demonstrate one of the commonly used masks. So as you can see on the slide, I modeled the shape of the mask after the N95 mask, and I used 4 layers of fabric. So in the bottom left corner, you can see that there is a cotton, there's a non-woven, there's polypropylene, and then a high density, high fiber count cotton. And as you can see in the top right picture, there is a nose wire as well, and there's a pocket in order to hold the frame or a filter. Next slide, please.
So in a general sense, the purpose of a mask, of course, is to block or change the flow of particles. So this is an early prototype of an animation to show how particles can go around or through a mask, and how our mold is supposed to come in and block particles going around the mask. So how we would measure if that's working or not is using something called fit factor. It basically divides the number of particles per area outside of the mask in a given area with the number of particles in the same type of area inside the mask. So essentially, is the mask reducing the concentration of particles?
Okay, to test our frame and to obtain the fit factor, perform a fit test on 4 different masks. As you can see on the screen, we have a full disposable mask, a black mask from Uniqlo, the homemade mask that Sarah mentioned, and an N95 respirator. So we tested how these samples perform with and without the frame using the portacam, as you can see in the middle picture. This device measures the particles inside of the mask with the transparent tube that you see, and the particles in the ambience with the tube. All of that while I follow the 8 exercises prompted by the portacam. Next slide.
So this is a further version of the animation. It should show the kind of density of or the concentration of particles for each mask without a frame here. The pie chart's kind of being relative to outside of the mask. And then we have the frame coming in to improve fit. This is what the model of the mold looks like for the frame. And you can see paired up with the blue surgical mask everybody's wearing, you can actually achieve this change in concentration of particles. That's the actual ratio there that we achieved. Oh. Sorry, having trouble moving slides. There you go. Okay,
so after testing the 4 masks, we obtained the following fit factors as you can see in this table. As expected, the N95 performed well and exceeded the recommended requirements. So there was no need to improve it further. However, we tested the frame anyways, and it wasn't surprised that the fit factor dropped, which might be due to the shape of the frame. As for the blue mask, we saw a significant increase in the fit factor with the frame. This is good news because we were able to determine that the frame really achieved a fit factor level of N95 respirator with an inferior but generic face mask. On the other hand, there was no change in the Uniqlo and the homemade mask with the frame. This might be due to the material itself or any leakages produced during the test. Next slide. So what can we do in the future? So for the frame, we might add a silicone gasket at the edges of the frame to improve comfort on the skin. We know that the fit factor is one of the many parameters to ensure protection, but we still can perform filtration tests and a better efficiency test in the lab to be certain that if the frame improved a two-way protection. We also encourage future makers and innovators to use PCL to produce masks and frames. And finally, since it was easy to make and very fast to do the frame, we might do market research to assess production and distribution.
Okay, so that's our presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and we hope that improvements keep being made. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Face Mask Group. While the Maker Fundamentals group gets set up, I forgot to introduce myself very rapidly earlier on. I'm Anne-Louise Davidson. I'm the director of the Innovation Lab. I'm also a professor in the education department, and I hold a research chair in maker culture. So a lot of the DIY flavors that you will see stem from previous research that has been supported by Concordia as well. So the Maker Fundamentals Challenge is an exciting challenge run by Melisse Ferrus, Emery Vandenberg, Geneviève Lamarche, Yunan Park, and Robert Latif, who will be presenting next.
Okay, hello everyone. Can you hear me well? Yeah, good. Okay, so we're the Maker Fundamental Groups, and we like to spotlight our partners first. We're in a partnership with Shelley Can, College St. Sacrament, Momentum Labs, Dawson College, and Concordia University. And I'm Hyunmin Park. I'm looking forward to talking with you today about the Innovation Lab Challenge. 5 undergraduate students, Emery, Geneviève, Melisse, and Robert from different programs represent the Maker Fundamentals presented by Innovation Lab. So here's the overview of our presentation today. As we went through the design thinking human-centered process, the order of the presentation will resemble the process. First, understand phase, we'll go over the definition of the makerspace and introduce our challenge as well as the problem statement. Next, empathize phase, we'll demonstrate the analysis of data from our interview findings. Then the define phase will bring you the visual representation of both the current and the ideal situation in our challenge. Ideate stage depicts the framework, how we went through the process to create the prototype. Last but not least, prototype will showcase our ideas that tackle the objective of this challenge.
So, the maker culture gathers people from different backgrounds, levels of education, and interests into making something with their own hands. It's a subculture of the do-it-yourself community focused on open source hardware. A makerspace is a place where one can tinker and collaborate with the use of high-tech to no-tech tools. The goal of a makerspace is to learn by letting the learners take risks, accept mistakes, and foster creativity with real-world problems. Furthermore, makerspaces satisfy the increasing demand for 21st century skills, such as collaboration, problem-solving, creative thinking, along with the STEAM activities. Next slide.
So we developed our problem statement to inform the rest of our research. Through our readings and interviews, we determined that the main issue in makerspaces are they're being underutilized by students and staff. Now, the key reasons that they may be being underutilized is that people don't understand how to use the technology in the lab and are intimidated by it, and makerspaces don't have enough technicians to be able to help all these classes. Our focus then became on how do we increase overall use of the space.
The data from our empathy phase came to conclusions which confirmed our problem statement. On our journey, we had the amazing opportunity to meet and discuss the various challenges that face makerspaces today. We spoke to actors within the culture, which was of inspiring school teachers, pedagogues, IT specialists, maker facilitators, Fab Lab coordinators, community directors, and robotics experts. From these insightful discussions, we thought to improve the overall utilization of the makerspaces, which is to focus on collaboration with teachers that will focus on students' benefits without overburdening the current school system and without the need for more teacher training.
school club, having a makerspace. So as you can see, our current framework looks like a main institution such as a high school or an after-school club having a makerspace and telling their students to go ahead and create something, but without specifying what exactly that's going to look like. So for the student, it looks something kind of like a long path to creating something abstract, and there's no incentive for them to necessarily go up about doing it. Essentially, it's very discouraging. We want our frameworks to start looking something more like this. So as you can see, we have a main institution where the institution will go ahead and bring the student to the platform. We will go ahead and make sure that people get familiarized with it. In conjunction, they will be meeting up with an expert to go ahead and craft a project that is of most interest to them, while also going ahead and creating some basic competencies. From there, they're going to have different deadlines that will go ahead and propagate their progress so that there's never any type of crunch. Everything is slowly going about so that they're able to go ahead and actually learn. In the meantime, they're going to go ahead and have these very clear expectations as for what are the capabilities that they have and what are they going to go ahead and be creating. And in a team of 4, whenever a roadblock ends up coming by, they'll go ahead and circumvent this roadblock with the help with the mentors on our platform. And the final picture should look like something that is a mixture of both creative and technical, and essentially completing the makerspace arch.
The ideation phase is where our creativity was on fire. Using the 10 by 10 matrix, as a team, we came up with as many as 100 different ideas, ranging from super low tech to super high tech AI solutions. Using a low effort, low impact, high impact diagram, our idea for the yearly Maker Festival came to be.
So the festival will be an annual event that all makers in Quebec participate in. It will be open for all high school students and other people who participate. Every year, there will be a different event. For the first year, the theme is Make Access. For the day of the event. The students will have prototypes to solve the problems from these scenarios. And on the day of the event, these prototypes will be evaluated by judges, and they will be displayed for the public which prototype they like the most, and the winners will get a prize. Out of all the ideas, the festival idea was selected because one of the problems was that people were feeling intimidated by maker spaces because of all the things that can be done in that place. Therefore, by limiting the possibilities through the scenarios, this feeling of intimidation will be reduced. Another problem is that students most of the time are given a project where the final product doesn't have any impact. And by giving real-life scenarios, the prototypes they create can be used by people who need them.
The Make Access Festival will end with an event that falls on International Disability Day, which is December 3rd. We are hoping to host a hybrid event, but however, at this moment, due to COVID, we are unable to complete the hospitality portion as we cannot book spaces past May 30 due to sanitary measures that keep changing. But we'd really like to create a hybrid live event at Concordia with faraway participants being able to join via video conferences. And these participants will be able to present their prototypes based on our scenarios.
So the scenarios for the prototypes will be developed in collaboration with mentors who have disabilities. Each scenario is created to cover different disciplines and interests for the high school students. For example, those interested in the arts might want to help make decorative wheelchair covers or design a fashionable cane. Students interested in design or engineering could create simple tools that offer more independence, like custom forks that curve for people who have difficulty grasping objects with ease. Writers could come up with cool marketing content for NGOs to help modernize their voice and get accessibility info out to the mainstream. All these collaborations between students and mentors can take place on the website that we developed.
So our second prototype is about the online platform where it connects the maker community. This prototype aims to solve the issue for the instructors who need an equipped technician specialized in the field. As we stated in the problem statement, that's one of the key issues that we figured out why the makerspace is underutilized. Thus, through the platform, we're trying to link the skillful student mentors who need hands-on experience with the instructor who need the equipped technician. In addition, we added more features to make sure we can run this platform efficiently and effectively. Okay, so there are some more key features. It's about the information page and the annual Maker Festival, as we explained for the first prototype. So it will contain the information page about the annual. I'm just gonna go back to this page. So it has all the informations in it about the Make Access 2021, the annual event page, as well as the sign up page where you can sign up as a mentor or innovator, even as a volunteer or jury, or as a partner or sponsors.
So this concludes our with the testing phase. So for the next steps, well, we hope the festival will be done by the next group to test it. And thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you, Maker Fundamentals group. Now over to the Neighborhood Community Service Database Challenge. And that's Justin Lito, Matthew Coton, and Sidak Singh.
Hello, everyone. We are the Neighborhood CRM group from the Innovation Lab. Today, we will be talking about our journey of how we started when going into this challenge, all the way up to the final prototype that we created by the end of the program. This is our team. I'm Sidak, and with me are Matt and Justin. Moving on. So, what is a CRM? It stands for Customer Relationship Management and was initially built for the corporate sector, but has been gradually adopted by different community groups as well. A CRM is basically a way for enterprises to find out the problems with the services or products they offer and fix them to provide their customers with a better experience. It is a software which ensures that every step of the interactions with consumers goes smoothly and efficiently in order to increase the overall profits. Now for the problem statement. In the beginning of our challenge, we knew very little about the functionality and the types of CRM that were being used by community groups. And therefore, we needed to develop a CRM tool which various not-for-profit organizations could use for their customers by mimicking a basic CRM. To do so, we had to focus on the external users and build a software that would keep its primary objective to serve the consumers in the best way possible. This would focus more on managing the customers of the organizations with the help of the developed CRM. Looking at the problem statement from the previous slide, we basically wanted to mimic an actual CRM and build one that any community organization could use. But after going more through the literature, we found out that different community groups had different managing needs, and not-for-profit organizations were not actually using a CRM, but instead needed a data management tool to manage their data, to provide the general public services that they were unaware of, such as contact informations, referrals, and so on. The goal of these organizations was not to make profits or follow the dynamics of an actual CRM, but simply get the necessary information out there to the public who were in need of help. For example, people looking for food banks, education help, job counseling, etc. And so this led us to restate our previous problem statement. After having found out that there was no one solution that would fit the needs of all community organizations, we took a step back. Instead of building an actual CRM software that would focus on consumers, we focused on developing a simple data management tool, which would include a front-facing portal with a back-end management system that would be easy to use and understand for any individual. We started to work on building a platform that would give different community groups a common methodology to work with, where they could use our management tool and make changes to it according to their own needs.
With the help of our mentor, Andrea Clark, who played a pivotal role in both this entire challenge and in the organization Heads and Hands, and through an interview with Miguel Cristancho, the executive director of Bienvenue NDG, it gave us an understanding of two different viewpoints as to what is needed. Bienvenue NDG had created a system of printing receipt-like referrals off their tablets and having access to other nonprofit organizations' flyers so that they can hand it out to individuals. For example, if an individual would require emergency food services from a local organization, but they wouldn't know who to contact, this system would print out a list of contact information for people who can actually provide the service. On the other hand, we learned that with Heads and Hands, in the case where an individual would contact them for a particular service, their difficulty was in finding and providing the appropriate contact information quickly and easily. What we learned from these interviews is that every organization may require different features or different uses from the system. With this in mind, we sought out to create a system similar to the one Bienvenue at NTG had created, but by making it adaptable for any other organization, while also making it available for public users to access the information themselves. From what we've seen, they were the only one using a system like this. Because the system was built by an actual programmer, we decided to use a low-code platform, a system that could be developed with little to none previous programming knowledge. This allows for any organization to easily tailor it for their own uses. The platform is used for the system's backend, where they would maintain all their data, and it would make it easier for them to do so. We based our system on a similar model to this, as these were the main attributes of the system that we needed to focus the most on. The processes required of our system would be a simple search feature so that any individual seeking a service may select the service that they require from a list of keywords, and they'll be shown names, phone numbers, etc., related to the non-for-profit organization that can provide the service. Our system would also need to allow for managing things like tasks and assigned to employees or the keywords of the organization's services, and etc. We learned that the primary users of such a system would be the managers of the organization and the users of partner organizations, as well as the employees like translators and volunteers, and most importantly, the public user who would be accessing this information. We use a platform called Caspio that would handle and hold the data in the background, while we also use a basic web portal with a regular website builder just like Weebly. Ultimately, our system would provide a website where the public can retrieve appropriate organizational contact information, and on the other hand, organizations can efficiently create and assign tasks to their employees.
Hey, hi, I'm Matt. I'm hoping you can all hear me right now. So just to quickly summarize, what our research and interviews had shown us was that a CRM might not be the best fit for all neighborhood organizations. That perhaps what they needed more than customer management was data management. And since not all organizations had the same types of data, they wouldn't have the same data management needs. In other words, there wasn't going to be quick one-size-fits-all solution. So how do we create something that could be replicated and modified by all organizations, regardless of funding or tech ability? By focusing on ease of access from a technological front and free to minimal pricing in the cost department, we discovered low-code and no-code platforms. But without being able to guess at what an organization might need, we were still stuck on how to start. So we decided to see if we could replicate what we had seen, namely the functionality of the custom-built data management system in use by Bienvenue NDG. And if we had time, we would add in some of the extras that they had on their wish list. So this was going to be our proof of concept, that a couple of guys with no development abilities and no money could build and deploy from scratch a custom data management system. Now, on to prototyping. While we were researching low-code and no-code platforms and establishing the criteria we needed to assess them, we mocked up a quick prototype in Figma. Okay, Figma is a free-to-use development tool that allows you to create design elements and share click-through prototypes. This allowed us to quickly develop and deploy mockups that we could get feedback from and modify on the fly. Next, all right, building the functional prototype. As was mentioned, Bienvenue NDG is an organization that aids people finding the help that they need getting started and settled into the NDG neighborhood. They do this by referring them to local organizations within the area. Their current system is installed only on their own tablets, so it's not available for public use. It allows employees to assess the needs of the individual and search through their database of organizations using pre-assigned keywords, and then print a receipt with the name of the organization, its contact details, and its address. To take this a step further, we built a website that allows the public to search for themselves based upon our idea of what those keywords might be. This website provides all the same information as the printed referrals and would allow the organization to reach a larger audience. Next, we looked at the organizations Bienvenue NDG were partnered with. Besides referring people to their services, they also provided translations for them. So we developed a method for their partners to request those translations. They can log in under the partner section and provide the details and any associated files. We also built a method of monitoring the translation tasks so they can see when they were started and who was handling them. On the other side of the coin, there are the translators. Now, these are usually volunteers from within the community serviced by Bienvenue and their partners. They can log in under the employee tab, see what translation tasks were available. They can assign the tasks to themselves, and this will send them an email with all the project details and files. They can monitor the tasks they've undertaken, and of course, they can enter their translations and upload any translated documents, and of course, mark the task complete when it is finished. This will trigger an email that is sent to the project creator with the translations and all associated files. Okay, now, finally, we come to the manager or the admin user. Now, they need to handle all the background data. Logging in under the manager tab gives them full access to the information for all the partnered organization, such as contact details and their employees. They can add organizations to the database. They can edit the organization's contact info. And of course, they can assign keywords to the organization, allowing the public to find them in the search. They can also monitor and edit all translation tasks that are assigned. They can assign translators to a task or they delete the task altogether if there's no longer any need for it. Overall, this challenge has been quite fun and interesting. It wasn't quite as linear as our presentation makes it appear. You can reach us at the following emails if you have any questions, or just wait for the questions and answer section at the end of the event. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you, Neighborhood CRM Group. Over now to the free neighborhood free Wi-Fi challenge group, and that's Ernie Sedmond, Alberto Temple Rivera, Joshua Chak, and Yujun Chen, and Yunsin Lee Chan. And our last group.
Hi everyone, so our challenge is Neighborhood Free Wi-Fi Challenge. My name is Yujun. I work with Joshua, Yun, Ernest, and Alberto. So for the introduction, we aim to develop a community-based Wi-Fi network allowing residents to have internet access. So why do we want to do this? Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, many residents in poor neighborhoods across the city would have used city Wi-Fi at the libraries or community centers. Given that these sites are now closed, Wi-Fi use is not only available to those who have fixed connections or data plans. This initiative would thus respond to an expressed need at this moment, and would also contribute to the creation of localized web access strategies. Also think about the right to everyone who should be able to access the Wi-Fi, not only because of the COVID-19. So for the problem statement, there are some problems that they are needed to solve, like roof accessibility, power source, technical difficulties, interference like trees, and also bad weather conditions, incentive to switch from individual to community Wi-Fi. Now I want to hand it to my group member, Ernest.
Thank you. So for the next part, we have the literature review. And basically, there were three topics that came to our attention. So the first one is the mesh and hotspot-based architecture network. So basically, the description is just to think about the installation of the open source mesh software along with the NYC mesh. Also for the infrastructure, then we had to think about like the type of building, how they would vary depending on the neighborhood, also the type of antennas available on the market and their specifications. Then after that, we had to think about the fact that the farther the reach, then the smaller the signal power would be in terms of the connection of the Wi-Fi. Then after that, for the conditions, there are two parts. So there's the physical one and the psychological one. So for the physical part, we had to think about like the line of sight, electricity, and the weather conditions. As for the psychological part, we had to think about training, privacy, and security. Then in order to set up our challenge, we had to do some data interpretation. So basically, we decided to identify a region which was quite dense and was highly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And from the data analysis, we found out that Parc Extension was an ideal location to begin with. The fact is that by using the CIRA website, we narrowed down our coverage base and download speed. And as we can see on the map, like the Rue Saint-Roch and Avenue Champagnat, have actually like a low download speed. So for those reasons, we felt like that Parc Extension was a good prototype neighborhood for our project. So I'm gonna hand it over to my colleague for what are mesh networks.
Okay, so before we move on to our prototype, let's see what are mesh networks. So a mesh network is a wireless network that is dynamically routed and uses a protocol to move information from one node to another. In basic terms, if we take a look at the picture, we can have a main hub, which can be, for example, the Wi-Fi from a public library. And we can then expand that same internet connection to the surrounding houses. And now Joshua will talk about the flowchart of our prototype.
Hi, everyone. So I will talk a bit about the flowchart. So what we're basically doing is we're trying to establish a do-it-yourself guide for creating a neighborhood mesh network. So we begin first with the planning, which will involve assigning the different roles to the participants that are going to take part into the network. Next is going to be the building and mounting of the actual hardware. Afterwards, we need to do the installation and configuration of the mesh firmware, the cost estimation, and then finally, we will talk a bit about the funding of the project. So now I will talk a little bit about the planning itself. So as I just mentioned earlier, the first thing we must do is assign the different roles to the network. So this would of course would depend on the different skill sets of the person. So if people are good with dealing with others, then they would work as an organizer. So their jobs would be to essentially reach out and spread the word within the community. Someone that's good with their hands, they would be the handy person, and their job would be to install and mount the hardware on the rooftop. And then there would also be the techie person whose job would be to configure the mesh firmware and also troubleshoot if any problems occur within the future. So now I will talk a little bit about building and mounting. So unfortunately, because we didn't have access to any people's rooftops, the actual mounting of the hardware did go beyond the scope of our project. However, we can still talk a little bit about wire crimping and we do believe this is an important step because as you can see in the diagram, it involves attaching the Ethernet wire from the outdoor node all the way into the indoor router. So next slide, please. So now I will talk a little bit about the crimping steps. So this begins with the Ethernet wire. We remove 1.5 inch of cable. We have to bend and ground the wire, and then we have to untwist the pairs that we see and straighten them. Now, as we can see in the following 3 photos, these are the following steps we have to do. So we have to ensure that we follow the correct color sequence as we see in the RJ45 connector. It is very important that we get the right colors, otherwise it could tamper with the connection. Next, we insert the connector into the wires, and then we use the crimping tool to ensure that the connection is stable and will come out. And then finally, after we have crimped the wires, we have to ensure that the connection works. So we will show this quick video that demonstrates that the connection is stable. As we can see, all lights 1 to 8 will appear. And if one of the numbers does not appear, then we need to go back to the previous steps to ensure that the connection was made adequately.
So now I will talk about the installation and configuration part. The main point of this section is to help the users of our guide learn how to create their own mesh network. So in this section, we have 2 main parts. We have the installation and configuration of both the root and the mesh access points. And in the picture, we can see the schematic of the mesh network that we actually created. Next slide, please. So for the first part is installation. So in the installation section, it covers how to easily assemble and set up the access points. On the left side of the picture, we have the setup for the root access point, and on the right, we have the setup for the mesh access point. Next, please. Okay, so now that we are done with the installation of the access point, the next thing that we have to do is configure them in order to create a mesh network. To do so, we used a software controller, which in our case was the Omada software controller. And basically, this enabled us to link the access points wirelessly to create a mesh network. And furthermore, this also enabled us to create an authentication portal. And the idea behind that is that if someone wants to join the network, he or she will be given a username and a password in order to have access to the network. And also for the software controller, apart from configuring the nodes, it also gives us information about the status of the nodes in our network. So if anything comes up, it can help us for troubleshooting. So now for the cost. And for the cost based on the equipment that we use for our pop-up mesh network, we had an estimated cost of $149.50 per node. And this number is tax included. And now Alberto will talk about some ways we can fund such projects.
Okay, so there's a few ways to get the necessary resources to make this project work. The first one would be to find a fiscal sponsor. The reason why a fiscal sponsor is important is that it's easier to accept donations, and it also gets grants as we can get their legal and tax exempt status for such projects. For example, we can also go and set up a website so it's easier to get donations, or we can also apply for grants. An example of this is the Community Investment Program by CIRA, which is, by the way, the Canadian Internet Registration Authority. And last but not least, we can also look for potential collaborations. There are many computer network companies that are strictly business to business oriented, so they will not see our organization as a competitor. They will be often willing to donate to a community network, and people that work already in that company might be willing in the future to set up their own nodes in this project. So in the next slide, you will find, this is the link where we have our PDF file with everything you need to do in order to start and build your own national network. So I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for your attention today.
Thank you, Wi-Fi group. So now, amazing job, everybody. We can open the floor to questions. Not sure, Anna, if there was anything in the Facebook feed, or if there are questions that can be answered. So there's a question about comfort assessment that I saw come around. That's for the face mask challenge group. The question was, what about the comfort assessment of your prototype? Did you run that? Did you wear it? Did you do any testing?
So I'm gonna let Alberto handle this one because he was the one in the lab with the frame.
I can say that we did a comfort test. Basically, I was wearing the mask for 3 hours, and during that period, I was not experiencing discomfort nor any sort of signs of chafing. But sometimes I noticed that I have to readjust sometimes, since I was doing my daily activities. So yeah, there might be still some things that we might have to improve. For instance, the tension required to hold the mask, because that will impact the fit. Yeah, by a lot.
Thank you, Alberto. There's a comment from Ali Balul from the Aerosol Filtration Lab saying, good presentation and job. Ivan Ruby from Mozambique is saying, amazing projects. I would like to ask to all group members, what would you say was the most important skill you learned through the challenge? So the question is open to anybody.
I don't know that this is so much like a specific thing I learned, but this is probably my first opportunity working with a team of like engineers and a fashion English student and me doing communications and some animation. So just the like working with a diverse skill set like that brought a lot, as we all went through like the same design process of prototyping and working on a project together and coming at it from all these different angles. So that was really useful.
Anybody else wants to mention something? Geneviève, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
To answer Ivan, was making mistakes is okay, which was very weird to me, but and you learn a lot more by just making mistakes and learning from there. However, when you present something in university, sometimes we always think it has to be perfect, but that's not the case. Making mistakes is a part of learning. So that's a skill that I learned.
Just to add on to Geneviève there, when I was in studying fashion, we did critiques in front of the classes. So our projects were critiqued by everyone publicly. And it was nice not to have that space in this case. It was nice to be able to share ideas and brainstorm and prototype and have sort of a feeling of community, as opposed to I'm being graded or everyone is judging me, you know, so it was a good space to have creatively that I found anyway.
Well said, Sarah. Same here. Same here.
Does anybody else want to mention anything about skills learned, or what was the most important skill or aspect of the experience? So there's another question or comment by Sushit Ahuja, who says, great work by all teams. I'm wondering what the next steps are after prototyping. From a business perspective, I do not see business models or competition analysis addressed currently. So very rapidly, the Innovation Lab is a space where we have created a playground for innovation. District 3 is the place for commercialization. So if there's anything that's commercializable, the road to commercialization is directly to District 3. So we would point everybody in that direction. There's a comment by Joel Trudeau who says, great job, everyone, to any of the presenters. What challenges did the virtual collaboration pose? How did you overcome them? And I think we can let some people talk, because some people were working in extreme time zone differences. So go ahead, guys, girls, people.
Yeah, I think both Sadak and I can answer this one. I'm here in Montreal, and Sadak is all the way over, basically on the other side of the planet in India. So what we would do is we established times every morning and every evening where we would log on to Zoom and talk each other through what it was that we had done throughout the day, right? Basically like a digital handoff kind of, where like we show what was done, what needed to be done, and then log off for the night and hand it over.
Yes, so this was a really efficient, this was just to increase the efficiency of the work we were doing. And by handing off work and working in our respective time zones really helped us in a way. Although we weren't working at the same time, but still we were able to get the work done, because like Matt mentioned, we used to always hand off the work to each other before going to sleep. And so yes, we made it work.
Thank you, Matt and Sidak. There's a question from Nadia Nafi online, commenting on amazing presentations and asking, can you talk about all the collaboration that was happening online in the context of COVID? Where were the challenges, and did your strategies succeed, or which strategies succeeded? And I think one of the things that we never mentioned is that we opened a Discord channel, a Discord server for the Innovation Lab, and the mentors were able to come and interact with the students directly on Discord, which was an open channel 24 hours on 24. So does anybody want to talk about the online collaboration or the platforms we used? Or it was interesting because when I opened Discord, it was my first foray in Discord, really administering a channel. And I can tell you that I didn't know everything, although I'm a professor whose expertise is online teaching, researching basically educational technology. So Robert is an expert gamer. He came into my rescue and showed me how to create different roles and change permissions. And it was very useful to have people who were very knowledgeable of this platform, because I would have never explored it in the same way. So expertise is an arbitrary notion. When we talk about technologies that advance so quickly, we can't be an expert of everything, no matter if we're supposed to be experts of that particular field. So that's definitely something I can talk about. Anybody else around the online platforms?
I personally thought it was easier. Getting 5 groups of students to meet live, for me, was always harder than what we had to do with this. I mean, we just did a when to meet, saw time frames that we can meet, and we met. And we could meet anywhere we wanted to. I remember once I was driving from IKEA, I stopped at a McDonald's, and I was able to connect to my 11 o'clock meeting. That's something that we would not be able to do had we had to be a live meeting. So I thought it was much easier, personally.
Yeah, I would actually like to build on that a bit more too. A lot of us, some of our students here are part-time, so we weren't able to devote all our time to the project, unfortunately. but I found that with the use of Discord and like the mural board where we were able to integrate all our work together, it was, for me personally, it was very, very helpful, because all those times that I couldn't be available like during the day due to classes or work, I was able to be available around the clock, like if my teammates, Matt or Sidak would edit something, they would just send it my way and like, hey, we need you to do this, or what are your thoughts on this? And allowed for constant around the clock, and I felt it was really effective.
Also, on the top of it, if I may say, and the Notion, I really recommend that. Like, I've been using the Notion for like past 4 months, and then Notion was really helpful to keep on track of everything, like keeping the meeting notes and everything else, like to make sure that every team member is on the track on the same page. So yeah, I'd say the Notion was one of the elements that I could use for the team work.
Thank you, Yunmin. There's a comment from Marie-André Croteau, who is a principal of the Collège Bourget in Rigaud. She says, you were inspiring to all teams. What would you like to transfer or keep from this experience in your future work? So anybody? This is the difficult transfer of training question.
Yes, I can say something about that question. So basically, I learned a lot of like new design approaches, and probably as an aspiring entrepreneur, I might apply the same approaches for my future projects that involve solving social issues, that like the ones that we are experiencing right now.
Thank you, Alberto. Anybody else?
if
Yes,
I
can I
may.
share my screen?
Go for it, Genevieve.
This is what I did. I learned. My son is now building a 3D printer. We did that together. And I built, as you can see behind that, I built myself a whole new maker space for my son in regards to everything that I learned with all this literature and Louise Davidson, of course, everything that I learned, and from my team. So that's what I'm taking from this group. So my kid is definitely benefiting from all this new learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Genevieve. Sarah, you wanted to say something?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to mention that I've worked with a couple of teams in the past couple of years, and working with a new team is always a new experience, and it always adds to being able to manage within a team and sort of learn how people work together. And I always find it very enriching to work in a team.
Thank you, Sarah. There's a question from Natalie Duponcel who says, great projects, everyone. In your opinion, what was unique about this experience that you have not yet experienced in formal education? What opportunities did this give you that you have not had before?
I like to say that the journey was more important than the end result, right? Like we had the opportunity to break things along the way, to really explore the challenge and all the different aspects of it. We walked into it not knowing anything about what a CRM was, what a database management was like. So we really had to learn things on the fly. And that was one of the best things about the entire journey.
Adding to that, I would like to say that I got the chance to learn about 3D printing, and also learn about the fit and filtration test of face masks. So that was unique.
Yeah, to add to that, I think that to learn about something that's so topical, being able to work on the face mask project has been really interesting. Instead of just learning about learning about design theory in general has been super helpful, but not only learning about it, but learning about it like working with something that's happening in real time has been a great experience.
So one member of our team is missing, and perhaps I can let her run her testimonial through a video. I will just share this for a second. So Melise Ferris.
And I just find the education sector really. Hi, my name is Celeste Melise Ferris. I am about to finish my degree in physics, and I worked on the Maker's Fundamental Challenge. I decided to work on the Maker's Fundamental Challenge due to its tie in education, and I just find the education sector really fascinating. And over the course of the last couple of weeks, I learned a lot about the innovation and design thinking process. I didn't know that there was a process specific to being involved in UI. And I really found the whole idea of going through all these different steps so that you're not just inferring people's experiences really helpful. And this has really helped me due to the fact that now, as I work on my own nonprofit, I'm able to use some of these steps to make sure that I'm not assuming some of the experiences of the people that I work with, as well as right now, when I'm going ahead and applying for jobs, I've been able to apply for things in UX, and I've been finding the field very interesting. So yeah, the last 15 weeks have been really formative for me, and this was a lovely experience to get right before I graduate.
Okay. So there's another question from Demetrius Rice, who's in Florida right now. He says, fantastic presentations to any team. What did you find the most beneficial about working within a team made up of various majors of disciplines rather than a team composed of people all with the same subject matter, background, or expertise? So anybody, I guess.
Different ideas coming to the table. It wasn't just one type of program. On voyait rien avec des œillères. It's a French term. So everybody had something to bring to the table that was different, that was innovative. Yeah, a lot of innovation within our team. Very proud.
I also want to say, like, because we were in different disciplines, we did bring different things to the table, but also there were moments where, like, all of our ideas related. Maybe we were using different terminology or we came from a different perspective, but finding those similarities really helped frame our project and like find those moments where we could all collaborate well and we were all on the same page, basically.
And one last question from Monica, who says, do you think having people with different skills working in a group helped in the innovation process? Were there also any challenges because of the different skills?
So for me personally, I remember Alberto and Omar had to explain a lot of the more scientific things to me, especially with the results and everything. I hoped it helped in the making of the presentation because, you know, you had to pass it by my brain to make sure I got it before, you know. But for me, that was really helpful, and they were very open and they explained things quite well. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. So our president, Graham Carr, has joined us, and he has a few words to say. So over to you, Graham.
Hey, Anne-Louise. Hi, everybody. It's nice to join you. Sorry, I wasn't able to be there right at the beginning, but I've been sort of listening in over the last 15 to 20 minutes. And it's been really fascinating to hear some of the common themes that you've shared about working collaboratively, about how much you've enjoyed the flexibility and the adaptability of the Innovation Lab experience, which has created new ways to connect and interact, and maybe you know, how that's one of the unbelievable benefits and perhaps unforeseen benefits of what we've experienced over the last 14 months is the need to search for different ways to be innovative and adaptable and flexible in order to succeed. I'm also just like a lot of the most recent comments, I guess, about the question about the diversity of the team. And, you know, one of the things which there are many studies which have been done on the innovation process. And one of the conclusions that comes back every time, is that if you want innovation to happen, you need to bring together people from very different backgrounds, different cultures with different technical and other skills, because it's through that process of learning to work together and exchange that real innovation happens. And I think I'm hearing some of that in terms of what you're describing as well. And it's good also to know that for some of you, you see the benefit of the Innovation Lab experience as an opportunity to focus on timely topics, on topics that matter today in society, which isn't always the case with regard to university education, because part of university education is about giving people fundamental skills and basic skills on which they can build. So to have that opportunity through the Innovation Lab to really dig down into questions that are important to all of society, such as through the face mask challenge, et cetera. It's a great example. We are facing a lot of complex challenges, not just today in the world, but we will face more complex challenges in the future. And we need people who have the capacity to think innovatively, and also the desire and appetite to get outside their comfort zone, which I think all of you have done to make really good things happen. And hopefully, for those of you who are graduating, the experience of the last several months has been an additional way to equip you for the steps after university, and I want to wish you all the best of success for that. Let me just close off, Anne-Louise, by thanking all of our external partners, all the mentors who've been working with our students in the Innovation Lab project. You're our inaugural cohort. Congratulations to all of you who participated. And of course, a big thanks to you and Louise and to Ariel for running such a great program, which is really allowing students to have a different kind of meaningful experience at Concordia. And thanks to all of the students for participating in the projects. The goal is to help people. That's part of our social mission as a university. And maybe in the future, you'll come back and be mentors and guides for the next cohorts of Innovation Lab students at Concordia. So thanks again, and congratulations on the great work.
Thank you very much, Graham. People are applauding you in the background there. So the biggest problems that face humanity today, such as housing affordability, discrimination, health, well-being, job opportunities, urban development, and climate change, cannot be solved with one discipline alone. They all require knowledge from various disciplines. And as much as we can make efforts to create cross-disciplinary activities, it is through people working together in a non-competitive environment where they can take risks, fail, experiment, test, iterate, learn, network, and develop key skills for the 21st century that interdisciplinarity really happens. This is why the Innovation Lab presents itself as a playground where industry, community, and faculty partners work with students on innovation challenges, projects, workshops, and events. The lab is a space where creative collisions proliferate through interacting with peers and mentors. The purpose of today's event was to show what can happen when we get off the beaten paths and we venture into the territories where the knowledge developed through various disciplines intersects and is applied to solve real problems. It started with ideas that came from partners who saw real needs to innovate on a substantial topic. We then proposed the challenge to students from all 4 faculties. For this cohort, we selected 20 students based on their interest and on the complementarity of skills. We created groups, which became teams, as students learned to know each other as they went through the steps of design thinking. We talk a lot about innovative pedagogies when we refer to the needs of diverse learners, but what I want to highlight is that what the Innovation Lab does is a bit different. We do the pedagogy of innovation. It proposes an open structure to meet requirements to engage in a form of pedagogy that prepares students for innovation. I will share a slide here so that I can make my call for participation. There's plenty of space for students to join us for the next semester. So if you're interested in applying for as a student, make sure you subscribe to our listserv or that you ping us on our social media. And if you're interested in partnering or mentoring students, please reach out to us, either by mail or on our social media accounts. The application for partners is available on our website. You can email us or ping us anywhere and we'll follow up. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a wonderful day. Over to you, Anna.
Thanks, Anne-Louise, and congratulations once again. Thank you for organizing this wonderful event. To all the students, congratulations. I'd like to say a special thank you to our guests, our special guests who have joined us today. So that's Nadia Bouyan, Anne Whitelaw, and of course, Graham Carr, who you just heard from. So thank you for taking the time for being here. Congrats again. I'll remind you by putting it in the chat that if you're interested in student-led projects, well, we have the place for you to be. That's concordia.ca/4 to check out further events happening this week, like the City Studio presentations that students will be given on Friday, and hearing from the latest public scholar cohort from this past year later this week. So please check us out. On that note, I'll remind you all that this event has been recorded, and we'll follow up with the link for you. We'll close up now and allow you to eat your lunch. Congrats again, students. A big applause from us here at ForSpace. Congratulations. And we look forward to working with you again soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Bye.